Too Many Bones. This is your review for 2. Good day, my name is Joe Gerba. Today I'll be going over Too Many Bones and how it plays with 2 players. Now, Too Many Bones is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game where you'll be building your own gear lock, which is your own character, just like you would like an RPG. You'll be getting different skills, leveling them up, getting different loot, and as you go through the lands, trying to find and vanquish this tyrant in the end. But along the way, you'll discover some encounters. It may be some battles, or it may just be an interesting encounter you have to face. And in the end, hopefully you can beat that tyrant, and if not, you lose. And let's see a little bit more how to play. So in Too Many Bones, each person is going to get their own gear lock mat. You may have some innate skills that you just have at the beginning, and you're going to be leveling this person up. So you don't start with very many of your dice, but each time you get a training point, you can either increase your health, which means you get to put an extra chip under your gear lock for an extra life point. And that's really neat about this game. You know, chip theory games, they have a lot of stuff, you know, dealing with chips, and then there's dice as well. But, you know, a lot of the life is depending on how large your stack is. So if you're down to 1 life, your character only looks like he has barely little life, and you can go along like that. So it's nice, and it's a neat visual. You know, if somebody has a big stack of chips, you know they have a lot of life left. So it's a pretty neat thing. So you can level up your character by either adding skill dice or just their vitals, kind of their health, dexterity, how many dice you get to move, how far you get to move each turn, the amount of attack dice you can roll, and defense dice. And it's a really neat mechanic. So at the end of each scenario, at the end of each encounter, you'll get to level up your own. Each character has their own sheet that they can read. They get to level up. Each character feels very unique. And each baddie type kind of feels unique. The bad guys in this game, the henchmen, they're called baddies in this game. Each tyrant, each boss is going to bring their own kind of henchmen, their own baddies to the battlefield. You may get used to how some of them play. They're just all different neat. There's a whole bunch of different keywords, which I'll get into a little bit later, but they all feel unique. They all feel different. You get sad when some of the baddies come out and you're like, oh no, not that one again. And you just hope to beat it. So during a battle, there's an initiative track on one side of the player mat. And when it's your turn, you'll either get to, you know, move or roll some dice according to your vitals. So you'll pick up your dice and you'll get to roll them, and you may roll, you know, a lot of these dice may just have 1 attack or a defense. Put them in your slots, keep them for the defense for later, and attack now and attack your targets. What is neat about this game is there's this thing called the backup plan. So even if you roll a miss, you roll these bones, which are Too Many Bones, and you can put them in your backup plan. So even if something doesn't go quite your way, you can use these dice at a later time. So that's one neat thing about this game too. But in the end, it's building up your skills, building up your dice, fighting these baddies, you know, rolling your dice on your turn, kind of like a turn-based RPG. And hopefully by the end, you've built up enough skills, your party has worked together enough to defeat the tyrant. So let's see a little bit more what I thought about the game. So first, let's talk about the components. The components in this game are just off the charts. You do get what you pay for in this game. The chips feel nice and weighty. The neoprene mats are just, they have a great feel. Just the chips, there's no way any of these stickers will rub off. The dice, they're so well made. There's so many components in this game. Each character is going to have their own tray of dice, own unique skills. You get these awesome just player references, and the game just feels very well crafted, whether it's the loot cards or the chips or just every part about this game feels like they put a lot of love into the quality of this game. Now the rules and references, the rules will take you a little bit to learn. They do a pretty good job of walking you through, and at the very end of the rule book they give you a great example. But it is a little bit confusing, and you do have to refresh yourself kind of every time you pull it out. It took me about 45 minutes, the first time to really grasp what I was doing in this game. The references are good, however, there's just a lot. When you get your gear lock for the first time, it's going to feel new, unique, and I do enjoy that about this game, is each gear lock is going to feel unique and has a whole bunch of their own skills, a whole bunch of skill trees they can go. You can never get everything in this game, but you do have to read about it first. You have to know what your innate powers are, what you get to start with, what some of these die faces even mean. So the symbology in this game, you do have to kind of get used to, but that's what makes each one of these feel really unique. Now when it comes to the baddies, each baddie is going to have their own skills and encounter terms, and there's a lot of them. It's really tough to remember, and it's really tough to kind of keep track of some of these things. They do a great job in this game, give you plenty of dice to put on top of your chips to remind, oh, I need to take 2 poison damage at the start of my turn, and then I take it down to 1. It's just a lot of those neat things, but there's a lot of references that you need to know in this game. So one big thing I suggest if you do pick it up is you got to stay organized. And one person needs to just be the master of the rules and know where to find all these instances and where to look up some of these questions. The setup in this game really doesn't take too long. However, it does take a little while to sift through the baddies. So for each specific tyrant, they use a certain baddie type, and you have to find those different types in the game box. And it can be a little bit tedious to set up, but overall, it's really not too bad. The biggest thing is, when you pick your character, you do have to read, some of the critical details before you really get to start playing. And every person is going to have to read their own. And some of them are a lot more confusing than others as far as the characters and the gear locks go. Table size, we like to take up our whole table, 3x6. We can definitely fit this in a smaller format, but there's just a lot of components. There's a lot to keep track of. You can definitely fit this on a 3x3 if you're pretty diligent on what you keep on the table, but we do like to spread this game out, so it does take up a decent sized footprint. So let's talk about the gameplay. There's so many things I enjoy about this game, whether it's just rolling dice, the randomness, seeing what new baddies are going to come out. My favorite part's leveling up. I love RPGs because you just get to level up your own way. There's always different paths you can go. You can go almost all vitals. You can go certain skill trees, certain skill paths. Each gear lock feels different. It always feels fresh when you play. You're always feeling that, all right, how am I going to build the gear lock this time? The battles are pretty fun. You know how the baddies are going to move, so you can kind of predict them there. It's very strategic with quite a bit of luck because you never know what you're going to roll. Sometimes those baddies may just smash you down, but that's all part of the dice. They give you so many. The gameplay is just, in this game, it's an RPG that you can finish in about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours with 2 players. There's a nice back and forth. You really got to work with the other person to make sure that you guys are on the same page. Somebody can stand in front and be the shield while somebody else is in range, or you could both just, be up in front and melee in this little battle mat kind of arena. It's just, the gameplay just feels very tight in some spots and then feels a little bit ambiguous in others where you have to reference this and this may interact with this somehow, and they can kind of bog you down there. But overall, I really just like rolling a whole bunch of dice, seeing what you do. I do 3 damage and you just take 3 chips off. And it's a lot of fun to be able to move around. It's a very hands-on game. You're definitely not just sitting back. You're always doing something. You're rolling dice. You're rolling for the baddies. You're moving the track. It's a very handsy game, and I do like that about this game. One of my absolute favorite parts about this game, instead of games like Descent or say like Gloomhaven, when you miss an attack, when you miss a defense, when you think you rolled poorly on a dice, when you get that miss, you roll a bones. So what happens when you roll a bones is you put that in your backup plan, and you can use that backup plan at any time. And it's almost like storing kind of your bad luck. You know, this didn't work, this didn't work. Oh, I have enough now to do my backup plan for my character. Maybe just do a couple damage, but it just may be enough to put some of these monsters over the edge. And it's just so neat that they took a mechanic that's usually bad, you know, a miss, your turn is just pointless because you can't do anything, and they took that into, well, let's turn it into when they miss, they still get to kind of buff some of these other things up. And I do really enjoy that about this game. I just like the miss mechanic, you know, taking something random and turning it into, well, it was bad, but you can store up some neat things. So in this game, I really do like it, but it's very random. And one of the things that I didn't enjoy, especially with the 2-player game, is some of these baddies may attack the weakest person. Well, if there's 4 baddies out there and they all happen to go first and they all attack the weakest person, you can just die without even getting a turn. Now, I know it's some randomness and game design in there, but not allowing the player to really ensure that they get their optimal turn, you know, and just taking them out for, you know, potentially 10 to 15 minutes while the other person tries to beat the encounter can just kind of be very annoying. If all the baddies go before you get a chance, there's nothing you can do. There's a couple characters that roll some defense and have some defense kind of built in while they get to do their turn and before the battle map starts. That's great, but some of these weaker characters, you almost feel like you have to level up health, and that's restricting in an RPG, feeling that you have to level something up. My last game, I had to level, you know, my health up at least 5 times just to make it, you know, to the final boss, and to feel like I wasn't so, you know, squishy in the game. And we played a shorter game, and feeling I have to level up that many times, just my health, kind of feels a little bit bad. I'd rather level up some of these skills, you know, the fun parts about this game, you know, throwing grenades with Boomer and Body Search, and Pickett wants to do like the big shields, but instead we have to level up health in a 2-player game because, you know, one of us is going to get hit each time because the baddies are either going to attack the person with the most health or the least health. In a 3 to 4 player game, there could be a few gear locks that don't get targeted at all because they're in that middle range, and they can really start to turn the tide of the encounter. But in a 2-player game, sometimes just the die roll of initiative can really turn the outcome in a very poor way. There's a couple of these baddies that just, you know, almost like a stopgap to the game. You can't attack it, you know, you'll lose your dice. On a 2-player game, you just don't have that many gear locks to take care of stuff like that. I like the play on 2 characters. You really need to make sure that they mesh well, but there just doesn't seem like an option. I have just about every expansion for Too Many Bones, but you just can't pick 2 random gear locks and expect them to work well in a 2-player game. They really do need to match. You really do need to take a little bit more time. We're in a 4-player game. You have just a lot more player actions per baddie action. There's never going to be more than 4 baddies on the battlefield, but there's only going to be so many players on the battlefield. So as some of those baddies die, a new one may take its place. And with 2 players, you can really just demolish someone's game and just feel very bad if you get a very bad initiative roll. You get attacked a few times before rolling a defense. Especially early on in the campaign, it can really snowball you in a bad way. Overall, I like the campaign feel. I like being able to get different loot. There's these different locked chests, these trove loot. As you progress these game days, more baddie points, harder baddies come out. Not necessarily more, just higher point, tougher ones. And I like so much about this game. However, it's just kind of, it's tough having some of those extra flaws, not having, a turn, or just, rolling poorly, feeling like you have to do certain things on your turn. Overall, I think there's quite a bit of freedom to this game. There's quite a bit of strategy on the battle mat, and there's a lot of moving parts to this game. Now let's talk about the difficulty. The difficulty, there's a couple settings in the book that you can do. Start with a little bit extra health, start with a skill, which I think it's always fun. Just to start with a little bit extra health and get a skill and use that skill on a skill die, because it's the fun part about this game is leveling up your skills. If I want to throw a grenade, I can only use it once during battle, but it's just fun to throw a grenade. If I want to throw a big boom, it's just fun to be able to do that. There's all these skills are, once per battle use, and it's just, it makes this game feel unique from your skill dice. And so it's just so much fun to level these up, but you do have to keep your vitals in check, make sure you have enough health, make sure you can roll enough dice to be able to use your skills. But as far as the difficulty, like I said, you may get, crumped on the first turn, or you may get to go first and start to really snowball the encounter. It can be very swingy. It's a dice game, which, take it or leave it. You either like them or you don't. But the difficulty in this game, I think they do a great job. As the day goes on, each passing day, more baddies. So in a 2-player game, you'll double your day count, and that'll determine how many, baddie points are in the pool. And I like that scaling. So with 3 people, you times it by 3. So it's just, they did a very good job of scaling this game with the amount of players. Now with 2, like I said, I just think it has a couple flaws that just keep it from being just one of the best games to just being a great game. So let's talk about the add-ons. This game has a ton of add-ons, and I'm going to admit it, I have just about every gear lock you can. I have just about every add-on I can, and I really like this game. The uniqueness of each gear lock is just so much fun. Some of the gear locks I think are better than others, especially when you take into account, player count, of 2, 3, and 4. But I just really like each gear lock feeling unique. You get a brand new set of dice, you get a new chip, you get a new mat. You feel like you're starting brand new every campaign, and that's why I really like this over something like a Gloomhaven or some longer campaign, is that you can play a 2.5 hour campaign with another character, put them back in the box, and choose another one. In the base game, you're going to get 4 characters, and they're all going to feel unique. And you can buy more add-ons as you go, add more gear locks, and each one will just feel unique. And I really like that, about this game. So is this game good for 2? It's tough for me to answer that, but I really like this game for 2. I think there's a good back and forth. I think you really need to work with the other person. A lot of maneuverability, a lot of strategy on using the battle mat, how you level your character. However, if I were to play this game, I personally think the 3 is probably the optimal number, and even 4. With 4, some of these baddies may get out of control when you're really fighting the big guys, and it may be a little bit of a steamroll. It could be either way, you're rolling dice. But we found out with 3 is actually the optimum number kind of for this game. We really have there's really good give and take. You feel like the players have enough turns to counteract the baddies. With 2, I really do like it. My wife and I play this game, and it seems like we either have one of the best times we can with the board game, or it's just a lukewarm experience. We've died on day 2 before. We've died on day 4 many times. And when you lose an encounter, just like any co-op game, when you lose, you kind of it brings down the morale altogether. And when it's by a dice roll or two, you really feel down about yourself. In this game, you can really get behind, especially kind of how snowball it is. If you don't get those training points and there's more baddies entering the battle mat the next encounter, it can be pretty tough. But overall, this game is just a lot of fun. I love the RPG feel. I like the chips. You know, the strategy is there, the luck is there, the dice rolling, just the ability to always feel like you're doing something. You're always involved. You always have a say. You may see something that somebody else does. You always get to choose which dice you roll for the turn. So the choice in this game is great. It really does feel like an RPG. There's just a couple little things holding this game back from what my opinion would be from it being just a outstanding, amazing game. This game is a great game. I like it for 2. I can't say that 2 is the optimum number for this game, but I really like Too Many Bones. Your mileage will vary depending on, you know, how deep you get into it. I didn't find necessarily the lore to be super deep in this game, but they do, you know, try to fill in a lot of gaps, you know, on your encounter, on your campaign and journey. But the main part about this game is just rolling dice, leveling up skills, moving around an awesome battle mat. High quality components, can be very random, very unforgiving at times, but overall a very fun game. So that's my review of Too Many Bones, and hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.